All right. Well, here we are going through the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, and we are on what's the date here? The date is Sunday, September 21st, 1884. And if I can go back a bunch of pages and tell you what chapter we're on, I'll do that just because it's helpful when I've got a PDF. Oh boy, we're way into this chapter. Okay, it's chapter 28 at the Star Theater. Now let's see if I can get back all the way down to where we left off. There we go. All right. So the last time we were talking, the master is having a conversation with Chunilal and some of the other folks. And they had just finished all of those songs about the Divine Mother. And now the master is talking about Radha. And the last bit that we read last week was Radha had attained Mahabhava. So she had attained that very high level of a very pure level of love, where you love without expectation of any return. So there was no desire behind that ecstatic love of the gopis, he says. A true lover does not seek anything from God, right? Because it's that love that is the answer to everything. That love of love by love. When you get all three pieces of love, understanding that they are love, and you mix the three of them together, well, you get pure love. Just in a metaphor, but you get a pure love. And that love is self-correcting and self-fulfilling. It needs nothing. It has no hunger. It has no nothing out of balance. It's a perfect harmony. So he also, a lover of God who has reached this state of Mahabhava, does not seek anything from God and prays only for pure love, a love that's equanimous, a love that has no reason or direction. It's a love that travels out in a perfect circle always. It doesn't have any emphasis in any particular direction. And he has no desire for powers or miracles, right? Because he long ago, or she long ago, since he's talking about Radha here, she long ago gave up the need of anything for anything that powers or miracles could give her. She had no need of them. She was fulfilled. She had Krishna. And so Ramakrishna continues on. He says, it is very troublesome to possess occult powers. Nangta taught me this by a story. A man who had acquired occult powers was sitting on the seashore when a storm arose. It caused him great discomfort. So he said, let the storm stop. His words could not remain unfulfilled. At that moment, a ship was going full sail before the wind. When the storm ceased abruptly, the ship capsized and sank. The passengers perished, and the sin of causing their death fell to the man. And because of that sin, he lost his occult powers and went to hell. Oof, boy. All right, so there's a couple of things in there. He's demonstrating one, that these occult powers are dangerous things to have, not necessarily helpful things to have, and that if you did have that kind of power, the reason that we don't have those kinds of powers is actually, or we should be glad that we don't, is because we don't have that level of knowledge, right? This sadhu didn't sink the ship on purpose. He just wanted the storm to stop for his own comfort. But because he changed that, a whole ship full of people died, right? And so this is the reason that we're kind of sequestered into, the low level. The more desires we have, the less power we have, right? We fritter it away in multiple directions. And so that's why the power to make a mountain throw itself into the sea is reserved for those people who are very highly developed in their consciousness, right? So that they are aware of a lot more of the puzzle, and they're not going to come from a selfish motive, like something from their comfort. And so it's not going to be harmful to others. Anything done through an egoistic intention will always harm somebody and help others, right? It's always a mixed bag. It is only when you're realized that you can know that your actions give love alone, right? That there is that no evil, that you cannot do anything wrong. You can't do anything unhelpful. If you do something that seems unhelpful to someone, know that in the end it will be helpful for them. Because to know your nature is to work completely without egoism, without any particular framework of orientation. And so it's done purely from love, for love. Once upon a time, a sadhu acquired great occult powers. He was vain about them, but he was a good man and had some austerities to his credit. One day the Lord, disguised as a holy man, came to him and said, "Revered sir, I have heard that you have great occult powers." The sadhu received the Lord cordially and offered him a seat. Just then an elephant passed by. The Lord, in the disguise of the holy man, said to the sadhu, "Revered sir, can you kill this elephant if you like?" The sadhu said, "Yes, it's possible." So saying, he took a pinch of dust, muttered some mantra over it, and threw it at the elephant. The beast struggled a while in pain and then dropped dead. The Lord said, "What power you have! You have killed an elephant." The sadhu laughed, and the Lord spoke. "Now, can you revive the elephant?" "That too is possible," replied the sadhu. He threw another pinch of charmed dust at the beast. The elephant writhed about a little and came back to life. Then the Lord said, "Wonderful is your power, but may I ask you one thing? You have killed the elephant and you have revived it. But what has that done for you? Do you feel uplifted by it? Has it enabled you to realize God?" Saying this, the Lord vanished. Right? So what's he learning there? What's God saying there? Why did he have him kill the elephant and bring it back to life, and then just asked him, did you get anything out of that? Right? He's trying to show us that to manipulate this world is nothing. There's nothing here. This is the manipulation of a dream. There's no value in getting something from here because it can't go beyond the boundary of the dream, right? And so even these exceptional spiritual states that we all like to think about, where we have these kinds of extra powers and these whatnots, he's saying, look, that's not the goal. Don't look at those things as a thing in and of themselves. They are nothing. They vaporize the moment you leave the boundary of the dream. They are no more. He says, but those things that are helpful to you, those things that what does he say here? He says, what has it done for you? Do you feel uplifted by it? Those things that can uplift your consciousness, those things that can take you to a deeper awareness of your nature, a deeper knowledge of being, those things will help you to realize God, and that is the only thing worthwhile in this world. That is the meaning of life. That is the point of being here, is to know the divine, to know your own divine nature. Because in that, you may still be here, but you won't be controlled by here anymore. You won't be limited by here anymore. You'll be able to live here as if you were in a dream in which you knew you were dreaming. And so the whole world, the mountains would obey you, the flowers would obey you. And if you had the highest love, even God himself would obey you. All right. It's one of the reasons he says that he's so conservative about giving out, uh, prema, divine love, because he says, if somebody loves me with a divine love, I am bound to them. I cannot say no to them. Right. And so he says that's why God is careful about handing out too much prema. Subtle are the ways of Dharma. One cannot realize God if one has even the least trace of desire. A thread cannot pass through the eye of a needle if it has the smallest fiber sticking out of it. So one cannot realize God if one has even the least trace of desire. The least trace of desire. That means any attachment to body or mind, any distraction. There should be nothing that pulls you out of yourself. There should be nothing that takes us out of the shrine of the heart. That's to be established there is the goal of life. Solely because it's the best seat in the house. You get from there, you won't miss a thing. Life will be intensely beautiful, intensely powerful, full of ecstasy, because you'll finally understand, you'll see things as they are. Krishna said to Arjuna, "Friend, if you want to realize me, you will succeed if you have even one of the eight occult. You will not succeed if you have even one of the eight occult powers. This is the truth. Occult power is sure to beget pride, and pride makes one forget God." Right? And what is pride? Pride is seeing body-mind identity as a positive thing because of a given attribute. That was a lot more complex than I wanted it to be, but yes,
It's
that's
also it's also the ego, isn't it? Pride.
okay. Well, pride and
Right.
ego. Yeah.
Yeah,
Pride, definitely.
pride.
Yeah,
Definitely ego.
right. But we have the ego because it gives us comfort. It gives us a sense of control and safety and power in a world where we have no control, safety, or power. And so it gives us that comfort, and we hold on to it very tightly because we don't believe the world to be Satchitananda. If we knew this world to be the manifestation of Satchitananda, we would instantly be unafraid. There would be no fear, right? Because we would know that everything is for our own good and that all karmas are working to bring us to freedom. But because we don't know that, we don't have that trust. And so we're terrified and deeply protected, and we run to our senses to help us, right? If you have even one of the eight occult powers, this is the truth. Occult power is sure to beget pride, and pride makes one forget God. Once a cross-eyed rich man came here. He said to me, "You are a Paramahamsa, right? A realized soul. That is good. You must perform a Swatyayana ceremony for me." What a small-minded person he was. He called me a Paramahamsa and yet wanted me to perform that ceremony. To secure welfare by means of the Swastyayani is to exercise occult power. All right, so this man, and this happens to us all the time when we talk about spiritual life. We grab concepts out of our philosophy and we press them against other concepts in the philosophy, but they're not at the same level of consciousness, and so they don't line up. But we use the logic from this one to try and counter the logic on that one to try and figure out a third one. And it doesn't work that way. That's why Ramakrishna, that's why all of the sages are so adamant that realization does not happen in the mind. It's not a matter of doctrine and dogma. It's not a matter of philosophy or a matter of thought. Right? And so this wealthy man could call him a Paramahamsa, but he had no idea of the actual meaning of what that would be. He had no idea of what a Paramahamsa was, because you would never ask a Paramahamsa to do something supernatural for your benefit for so many reasons. For so many reasons. But the least of which is because you would know the world to be utterly unreal. And so you would never want something from the world. But see, that's the whole thing. That's why the scriptures say, not just the Hindu scriptures, Christian scriptures, that to be wealthy and to come to realization are contraindicatory, very difficult to do. You know, it's very difficult, but Jesus says it very frankly. He says it's very, very difficult for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God. He says, as a matter of fact, it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God. So you can see a lot of these things that the body mind wants. The reason Mother doesn't give them to us is because it would be a sentence. It would be an imprisonment, right? We sit there and we think, oh, I'd love to win the lottery and have all that money available to me, because from a perspective, as a body mind, that looks like freedom. Ah, I could do anything I want all the time. But what you don't understand is that your desires would multiply like bunnies, right? And that no amount of money is enough to fulfill all your desires. You're going to run out at some point from that expenditure, as it were. So an egoistic person, right? An egotistic person, and then that means a person fully identified with their body mind, looking for their answers in the mind, trying to work out their manifestations in the material world, and trying to get through the senses, the things that they think they need. And he says, an egoistic person cannot realize God as long as you have that attachment to body mind, as long as you think the world to be real and separate from you and hold something that you need or want. You cannot realize God. He says, do you know what egotism is like? It's like a high mound where rainwater cannot collect. The water runs off. Water collects in the lowland. This sounds familiar to me, Hunter. Just a minute here. I went zipping along there. It's like a high mound where rainwater cannot collect. The water runs off. Water collects in lowland. There, seeds sprout and grow into trees, and then the trees bear fruit. Right? So an egoistic person is contraindicatory to be egotistical, to be proud, to be arrogant, to be overly confident. Well, to be confident in yourself at all, actually, in one way, uh, can be very harmful. Better to trust in the divine, so that if something goes your way, it grows your faith in God rather than growing your ego. Right. So that's why we try and think that way and remember that all of this is done through grace. That's why I won't agree to a statement that meditation brings us to realization, right? Because it can't be a doing, because realization is not the result of karma, right? Meditation is our true nature. It has always been there, and seeing it is always a matter of grace. God just removes the blinders from our eyes. So egoism is contraindicatory. The ego must be wiped out. Therefore, I say to Hazra, never think that you alone have true understanding and that others are fools. One must love all. No one is a stranger. It is Hari alone who dwells in all beings. Nothing exists without him. All right. So see, this is the counter to that. This is how we live in this world without creating ego. All right. He says here, it's one. Do not have the idea that you know something that nobody else knows. Do not have the idea that you are right and others are wrong. Do not have the idea that you are smart and others are dumb, that you're better for any reason. Don't value yourself based on attributes and qualities of body mind, right? So we don't want to see others as fools. We don't want to look at others. We don't want to judge them by an imagined standard. So that's one way that we get rid of egoism. We must love all, right? So we make an effort to love everybody. No enemies there. And if we do have love enemies, we make a practice of loving them. No one is a stranger, right? So it's just being very, very confident in the self. If you know your own nature, see, this is the beauty of this. It's not that we have to do any of this. It's that if we do this, this is how we will see the world. This is how we will know the truth of the world, right? And so as we live in a world where we're seeing God in everyone, we're knowing Satchitananda, we're not seeing anyone as a stranger. So, egoism is what causes all of that. Egoism is what causes you to see others as strangers. It's what causes you to think that you're better, to think that you're more worthy, whatnot, blah, 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 on and on like that. But he says it is God alone who dwells in all beings. What is there in you? And you can see how odd. look at the different things that one can be proud of. My two favorite things is like one's looks, you know, and this is the one that gets me all the time. It's because it's such an absurdity to be proud of your looks. Because what did you have to do with it? You were born beautiful, good for you. That took no effort on your part. It took no personal, mental, or physical development for it to happen. It's just the roll of the dice, and to build an identity on it and to become arrogant about it, to become conceited about it for something that, that literally you have no responsibility for whatsoever. But that's the nature of Maya. You see how Maya convinces us of these ridiculous things. I found myself when I was in my early 20s being proud of being able to sing. My mother had always told me I could sing, and so I always sang in church and got to lead the singing at church and all that. So I had an ego around being able to sing. And then one day, mother just whacked me up the side of my head and just said to me, "So what? You can sing. What did you have to do with that?" That, well, how is that something that you accomplished? That's just isness. That's just something that was given to you, a talent given to you, right? And so when we realize that all of this is grace, all of the things that you have were a gift to you, then we can lose that pride, right? We can lose that pride. And then what happens? Then a pure love uses our gift. And that's where the gift will have its most power. When you are able to use your voice to be able to sing that song with pure love, with no pride, no distraction, then you can know that everybody listening to that song is going to be deeply moved by you. Because love is what moves people. Egoism is what uh, blinds and deafens the world. An egoistic person cannot realize God. Egoism is like a high mound where rainwater cannot collect. The water runs off. The water collects in lowland. Seeds sprout there and grow into trees, and those trees bear fruit, right? Because without egoism, all there is love, and love is what creates everything. Love is the food for this entire creation. Therefore, I say to Hazra, never think that you have true understanding and that others are fools. You must love all. No one is a stranger. It is God alone who dwells in all beings. Nothing exists without God. God is existence itself. So that those two sentences or three sentences there in that paragraph are your ingredients for an antidote to egoism. The Lord said to Prahlada, "Ask a boon of me." "I have seen you," replied Prahlada. "That is enough. I don't need anything else." But the Lord insisted. Thereupon Prahlada said, "If you must give me a boon, then let it be that those who have tortured me may not have to suffer punishment." The meaning of those words is that it was God who tortured Prahlada in the form of his persecutors, and if they suffered punishment, it would really be God who suffered from that punishment. All right, this is that beautiful quote. Wasn't it Carol? What was her name from that The Universal Christ? She had that wonderful statement in there where she says that's how we should see sinners. We shouldn't see sinners as the sinner. We should see the sinners as the Christ in that sinner suffering from their sin, right? So it builds compassion in us. It can build a love and a desire to reach out, to become a strength to a person.
House
Right?
slander.
Yeah, well, Hauslander, yes. Carol Hauslander. And so just this beautiful awareness that for us, we look and see Thakur or Ma in everyone. And we know when that person hurts, or we know when that person isn't living a pure life. We don't blame that person because we see Mother in that person suffering for that life, right? And so all we want to do is help that person transcend, help that person find their inner bliss. Radha was mad with prema, right? So that's that highest love, that divine love. a love that has no requirement and no expectation. Radha was mad with prema, ecstatic love of God. But there is also the madness of bhakti, of devotion. Hanuman's was such. When he saw Sita entering the fire, he was going to kill Rama. Then, too, there is the madness of knowledge. I once saw a Gyani behaving like a madman. He came here very soon after the temple garden was dedicated. People said he belonged to the Brahmo Sabha of Ramohan Roy. He had a torn shoe on one foot, a stick on one hand, and a potted mango plant in the other. After a dip in the Ganges, he went to the Kali temple where Haladari was seated. With great fervor, he began to chant a hymn to the Divine Mother. Then he went up to a dog, held it by the ear, and ate some of its food. The dog didn't mind. Just at that time, I too was about to experience the state of divine madness. I threw my arm around Hriday's neck and said, "Oh, Hriday, shall I too fall into that plight?" So we've got this wonderful image of this seer there. In another place, he talks about it in another place where he's talking about this same sadhu who was a knower of God. He says that when he went into the temple and began to chant that hymn to the Divine Mother, he said the power of his chanting shook the foundations of the temple. Like you could feel the entire building vibrate with his chanting when he sang, because you're directly connected. You are the source of the universe at that moment when you can do anything from a pure love, from prema, when you can do anything without a motive, right, except for the inspiration of being. Then it comes directly from the heart of the universe, and you can know it comes with the power of a tsunami, right? I became mad. Narayan Shastri came here and saw me roaming about with a bamboo pole on my shoulder. He said to the people, "Ah, he is mad." In that state, I could not observe any caste restrictions. The wife of a low caste man used to send me cooked greens, and I ate them. All right, so again, he saw God everywhere. He saw everything was divine. So for someone seeing everything as divine, there is no impurity, there is no evil, there is no wrong. All societal distinctions, those will be the first things to go. All of your social requirements, say thank you, say please, say you're welcome. All those things are the first thing that drop off, right? Because you come to a new level of authenticity where you're practicing and playing with real love and not the associated tools of love. I touched my head and lips with the leaf plates from which beggars ate their food in the guest house of the Kali temple. Thereupon Haladhari said to me, "What have you done? You have taken the food left by beggars. How will you marry off your children?" What have you done? You've taken the food left by beggars. How will you marry off your children? These words aroused my anger. Haladhari was my cousin, older than myself, but could not restrain me. I said to him, "You wretch! Isn't it you who take pride in the study of the Gita and the Vedanta? Isn't it you who teaches people that Brahman alone is real and the world is illusory? And yet you imagine that I shall beget children. May your mouth that recites from the Gita be blighted." Oof, he just cursed him. Wow. To M. You see, the mere study of books avails nothing. One may recite the written part of the drum glibly from memory, but to play the drum is exceedingly difficult. Right. Yeah, see, this is why we practice, so that the things that we learn and read and understand can have an opportunity to become a part of us. So they have to come out of the head. We have to spend in silence. They have to drop their root down to the heart so that the way that we are becomes affected by the truth of these things. It doesn't work to have them up here to be able to answer questions with great eclat and to be able to expound beautiful philosophical understandings. Who cares? who cares? Everybody can do that with a little work, you know. To know something, though, to have it actually affect the way that you live, so that you actually become known as a person of divine love, a person of divine compassion. If you actually get known as someone around whom it is easy to think of God, you know, someone who can free your mind, someone who can inspire you, you know, for it to take effect in our lives, that's the thing, right? At any cost, that must happen. That inner transcendence of ignorance, of body mind, so that we unlock that door and that light just shines equanimously in all directions. Bright, bright, bright. You see, the study of books avails nothing. One may recite the written part for the drum glibly from memory, but to play that drum is exceedingly difficult. The master continued with the description of his divine madness. Once for a few days I was out on an excursion with Mathur Babu in his houseboat. We took the trip for a change of air. During that trip we visited Navadvip. One day I saw the boatmen cooking their meal and stood and watched them. Mathur said to me, "What are you doing there?" I replied with a smile, "The boatmen are cooking and their food looks very good." Mathur felt that I might ask the boatmen to give me a portion of their food, so he said, come away, come away. But I cannot do such a thing now. I am no longer in that mood. Now the food must be cooked by a Brahmin observing ceremonial purity and be offered to the deity. Then only can I eat it. You see, this is an important lesson here because you see how Ramakrishna, and we see this in his life, and it's something we really need to learn, or really should learn, take an opportunity, in that Ramakrishna understood his moods, you know, and that there were times for doing certain practices and times when they weren't so important. It's not that all of the things are always of the same level of importance, right? And he was always living where he was. He was never living above his star or below his star. He was always being authentic to where he was and who he was. And so in those times where the mind was driven to extreme purities, and he had to operate on extreme truth, you know, as an example, that time he told his friend he was going to come visit, didn't come visit, and he was going to bed and realized he hadn't gone to visit, and he said he would, and so he got all dressed again and went out of the house and went over and went to that person's house and touched their front door with his toe, you know, just so he could say he'd been there, and then he went back and he could go to bed then because he was in integrity again. And he said, you know, that was a part of my life. The mind was learning integrity. It was very important at that point. But then that mood passed, and now I'm in this other mood here where I don't care about caste at all. I would love to have dinner with the boatman and with any person of any caste. I don't care. I would grab a dog by its ear and share food with it, right? Because in that mood, that state, he's seeing God everywhere. It's the fact that he's seeing God everywhere that makes it all right for him to do that and say that at that point. It's not all right for him just to know, to think in his mind, God is everywhere, and then get the same permission from that to act any way that he wants. You see, that's what we have to be careful about. Because a lot of times we'll grab a high ideal, I'm not the doer, right? And we'll say, I'm not the doer. And then we'll go out and do all kinds of vice and glibly say, oh, I'm not the doer. And yet you are the one doing it, and you feel like you're the one doing it, and you're the one who decided to do it. So within your own world, you're being horribly insincere, right? Because you're saying I'm not doing, and yet you're enjoying what? You're enjoying the doing. And so that delusion there, we have to be very careful about that. This is why we sit, because this is quite a task that we're undertaking. Quite impossible, actually. So I cannot do such a thing. I'm no longer in that mood. Now the food must be cooked by a Brahmin observing ceremony purity and offered to the deity. Then only can I eat it. Oh, what moods I passed through. At Karmarpakor, I said to Chine Shankari and other chums of my boyhood days, "Oh, I fall at your feet and beg of you to utter the name of Hari." I was about to prostrate myself before them all. Thereupon Chinne said, "This is the first outburst of your divine love, so you don't see any distinction between one man and another. When the storm breaks and raises the dust, then mango and tamarind trees look the same. One cannot distinguish the one from the other." A devotee: how can a householder keep on with his worldly duties if he is overwhelmed by such bhakti madness, or love madness, or even knowledge madness? Master, looking at him: there are two kinds of yogis, the revealed and the hidden. The householder may be a hidden yogi. No one recognizes him. The householder should renounce mentally, not outwardly. Ram: you talk as if you are consoling children. A householder may be a jnani, but never a vijnani. Master: he may become a vijnani in the end, but it is not good to force oneself into renunciation. Yes, that's something that's taken me a long time to learn. You can't force yourself into these things. You have to do the work of discernment. You have to let your renunciation become a natural outcome of your knowledge. Right? It can't be something where you repress or you force. That will be mentally unhealthy for you. If you do that, just from my own experience, I know you develop these spiritual hernias, little compulsions that you're not in control of. And when you go to be in control of them, your mind is in the wrong way to think. You don't, because you don't understand the situation you're in, and so you can't control it properly. And so, yes, so your renunciation should be a product of your discernment, right? Going in and finding and seeing clearly that this is not helpful to you. This doesn't last. It's not what I'm looking for. It can't give me anything. And then through constant practice of that, eventually that thing loses a hold over us, right? So it is not good to force oneself into renunciation. Ram: Keshav Sen used to say, "Why do people go to him so much? One day he will sting them and they will flee from him." Master: why would I sting people? I say to people, do this as well as that. Do your worldly duties and call on God as well. I don't ask them to renounce everything. With a smile: one day Keshav was delivering a lecture. He said, "O Lord, grant us that we may dive into the river of divine love and go straight to the ocean of Satchitananda." The ladies were seated behind the screen. I said to Keshav, "How can you go and dive once for all?" Pointing to the ladies, I said, "Then what would happen to all of them? Every now and then you must return to dry land. You must dive and rise alternately." Keshav and the others laughed. Hazra says to me, "You love most those endowed with rajas, those who have great wealth and name and fame. If that is so, then why do I love people like Harish and Noto? Why do I love Narendra? He can't even afford salt to season his roast banana." Sri Ramakrishna left his Sri Ramakrishna left his oh, there's a word missing here. Sri Ramakrishna, I guess, left his room and went toward the pine grove talking with M. A devotee followed them with the water and towel. The master was talking about his intended visit to the Star Theater. He said to M, "What Ram says applies to Rajasic people. What is the use of reserving an expensive seat?" About 5 o'clock that afternoon, Sri Ramakrishna was on his way to Calcutta. Mahendra Mukherjee and a few other devotees accompanied him in Mahendra's carriage. Thinking of God, the master soon went into an ecstatic mood. After a long time, he regained consciousness of the world. He observed, "That fellow Hazra dares to teach me, the rascal." After a short pause, he said, "I shall drink some water." He often made such remarks in order to bring his mind down to the sense plane. Mahendra to M, "May I get some refreshments for him?" M, "No, he won't eat anything right now." Master, still in an ecstatic mood, "Oh, I shall eat." Mahendra took the master to his flour mill located at Hathibagan. After a little rest, Sri Ramakrishna was about to go to the theater. Mahendra did not care to take him to his own house, for the master was not well acquainted with his father. Priyanath, Mahendra's second brother, also was a devotee of the master. Sri Ramakrishna was sitting on a cot over which carpet had been spread and was engaging in spiritual talk. The master to M and others. Once, while listening to the various incidents of the life of Chaitanya, Hazra said that these were manifestations of Shakti and that Brahman, the all-pervasive spirit, had nothing to do with them. But can there be Shakti without Brahman? Hazra wants to nullify the teachings of this place. I have realized that Brahman and Shakti are identical, like water and its wetness, like fire and its power to burn. Brahman dwells in all beings as the Bibhu, the all-pervasive consciousness. Though its manifestation is greater in some places than in others, Hazra says further that anyone who realizes God must also acquire God's supernatural powers, that he possesses these powers, though he may or may not use them. M. Well, yes, one must have control over these supernatural powers. Everyone laughs. Master smiling. Yes, one must have them in one's grasp. How mean! He who has never enjoyed power and riches becomes impatient for them, but a true devotee never prays to God for them. Sri Ramakrishna washed his face. A smoke was prepared for him. He said to M, "Is it dusk now? If it is, I won't smoke. During the twilight hour of the dusk, you should give up all other activities and remember God." Saying this, he looked at the hairs on his arm. He wanted to see whether he could count them. If he could not, it would be dusk. Right, so there's a little insight into how to tell time when you don't have a watch. Look at the hairs on your arm. If you can see them, then it's not dusk. If it's not dusk, it's not time for meditation yet. So he looked to see if he could see, and then he decided, oh, I better go meditate. About 8:30 in the evening, the carriage with the master and devotees drew up in front of the Star Theatre on Beedon Street. He was accompanied by M and Baburam, Mahendra, and 2 or 3 others. They were talking about engaging seats when Girish Chandra Ghosh, the manager of the theater, accompanied by several officials, came out to the carriage, greeted the master, and took him and the party upstairs. Girish had heard of the master and was very glad to see him at the theater. The master was conducted to one of the box seats. M sat next to him. Baburam and 1 or 2 devotees sat behind. The hall was brilliantly lighted. The master looked down at the pit and saw that it was crowded. The boxes also were full. For every box there was a man to fan those who occupied it. Sri Ramakrishna was filled with joy and said to M with his childlike smile, "Ah, it's very nice here. I'm very glad to have come. I feel inspired when I see so many people together. Then I clearly perceive that God himself has become everything." M. It is true, sir. Master. How much will they charge us here? M. They won't take anything. They are very happy that you have come to the theater. Master. It is all due to the grace of the Divine Mother. The Chaitanya Leela was about to be performed. It was a play about the early life of Sri Chaitanya, who was also known as Nimai, Gaur, Gora, and Gauranga. The curtain rose. The attention of the audience was fixed on the stage. The first scene depicts a council of sin and the 6 passions. On the forest path behind them walk Viveka, Vairagya, and Bhakti, engaging in conversation. So you've got sin and the 6 passions walking, and in the background you've got Viveka, which is discernment, Vairagya, which is dispassion, and Bhakti, which is devotion, all of them having a conversation. So those are the 3 elements that are necessary for taking you to realization. And they're having a conversation, and in the background we've got sin playing with the other passions going on. Bhakti says to her companions, Gauranga was born in Nadia, therefore the Vidyadharis, the Munis, and the Rishis have come down to earth in disguise to pay their respects to him. She sings, "Blessed indeed is the earth, Gaura is born in Nadia. Behold the Vidyaharis coming down in chariots to adore him. Behold the Munis and Rishis who come allured by the spell of love. The Vidyadharis, Munis, and Rishis sing a hymn to Gauranga and adore him as an incarnation of God. Sri Ramakrishna watched the scene and was overpowered with divine ecstasy. He said to M, "Look at it. Ah, ah." The song continues. The sages are singing, "O Keshava, bestow thy grace upon thy luckless servants here. O Keshava, who dost delight to roam Vrindavan's glades and groves." The goddesses sing, "O Madhava, our mind's bewitcher, sweet one who dost steal our hearts, sweetly playing on your flute." The chorus, "Chant, O mind, the name of Hari. Sing aloud the name of Hari. Praise the Lord's Hari's name." The sages join in, "O thou eternal youth of Braja, tamer of fierce Kaliya, slayer of the afflicted's fear." The goddesses, "Beloved with the arching eyes and crest with the arching peacock feather, charmer of Sri Radha's heart." The sages, "Govardhan's mighty lifter, thou, all garlanded with sylvan flowers, O Damodara, Kamsa's scourge." The goddesses, "O dark one who does sport in bliss with sweet Vrindavan's gopi maids." Chorus, "Chant, O mind, the name of Hari. Sing aloud the name of God. Praise Lord Hari's name." As the Vidyadharis sang the lines, "Beloved with the arching eyes and crest with the arching peacock feather," the master went into a deep samadhi. The orchestra played on, but he was not aware of the outer world. Immediately, just in my mind, I just saw there it says where the master goes into a deep samadhi. Now, mind you, that's perfect meditation, right? And it says, but the orchestra played on, right? That could you could metaphorically take that like he is in samadhi, but the world goes on, the mind goes on, the noise is still there. It's still the senses are still bringing in information, right? But he has withdrawn his awareness from body mind and is resting in the abode, right? He's established in the shrine of the heart. And so none of that is bothering him. So you can see that his samadhi was due to his withdrawal of awareness from body mind, and not necessarily because mind stopped and body stopped. They stopped because the awareness was withdrawn, right? So it gives us a little bit of a clue there. So when we're having a bad meditation and the mind is all noisy, don't keep your mind on the mind, right? Don't keep your mind on the noise. You've got to withdraw your awareness from mind. Gather it into the shrine of the heart. Sit in the presence and put your mind on the presence. And think of the presence as the stillness that allows you to be aware of the noise in the mind. But keep your awareness on the stillness, on the presence of God in the shrine of your heart, right? Another scene, a guest has arrived at the house of Jagannath Mishra, Nimai's father. The boy Nimai plays about, singing with his friends in a happy mood. "Tell me, where is my blessed Vrindavan? Where is Mother Yashoda? Where Father Nanda and Brother Balai? Where my twin cows, black and white? Tell me, where is my magic flute? My friends Sudama and Sridama? Where my Jamuna's bank, my banyan? Where my beloved gopi maids? Where is Radha, queen of my heart?" The guest closes his eyes while offering food to the Lord. Nimai runs to him and eats the food from the plate. The guest recognizes Nimai as an incarnation of God and seeks to please him with the hymn of the 10 incarnations. Before taking leave of Gauranga's parents, he sings, "Glory to Gaura, the source of bliss. Hail Gauranga, redeemer of earth, help of the helpless, life of the living, slayer of fear in the hearts of the fearful. Age after age we see your play. New sports unfolding, moods ever new, new waves rolling, new tales to be told. Thou who bearest the whole world's burden, shower on us the nectar of love. Take away our grief and affliction. Thou in love's pleasure cave dost dwell. Hope of the suffering, chastiser of sin, scourge of the wicked, victory to you." Oh, there we go. We got our new name for the Shrine of the Heart right there. Love's Pleasure Cave. Dwell in Love's Pleasure Cave. That's what an odd name for the Shrine of the Heart. Maybe that's what we should call the Colorado group. Instead of Tapavan, maybe we'll call them Love's Pleasure Cave. All right, we'll stop there for today.